Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Well, it's like, I mean, maybe you're here for the air conditioning, but we're also here to have a great discussion about DIY music promotion today here at Music Talks as part of Ada Jazz Festival. My name's Arlette. I'm a publicist and author. I get attention for people for a living, which means I also get rejected for a living, but more on that later. I'm here with this beautiful, beautiful panel today, and I'm going to start on that side and work my way up, and then we're going to talk about music promotion for about 30-40 minutes. I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions right after that. So thanks again for coming, and please can I get a huge round of applause for these three beautiful people. So we're all actually very fortunate to have such an eclectic company here today, because Maria Brachmanska is a social media genius who was invited to come to Berkeley, Valencia after her talk here last year at the age of what, 25? Girl, what?
Yes, I'm a 2000s baby.
Ooh, see? So we've got a social media guru here who focuses on the music industry, also on tours nowadays, from what I understand. So if you want to learn how to sell tickets while touring, Maria is your girl. Ivo, curator, label manager. I mean, I know that you know a lot about music distribution. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, you organize events. You do so much, like not just in Sofia, Bulgaria, but abroad as well. Ivo of Stereofox, founder of Stereofox. If you haven't heard of him, Google that. You're going to thank yourself later. And then Nills, you're actually going to play here tomorrow.
Tonight, actually.
Oh my God, tonight. So we all have to come to your gig. 8 o'clock, is it?
8, exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. Mark your calendars. I can see your faces. I want to see all of you in the crowd at 8 o'clock today. And he's going to give us a musician's perspective on self-promotion and DIY in an ever-changing world, I would say. So I think it actually would be fun to start with you. Like, what is like a main challenge that you're looking into? Because I know that you're part of a collective and you battle challenges together. I mean, the power of unity, I guess. But what are these challenges? What can you unite against? Is it marketing? Is it bookings? What is that? How does that work?
To start from the top, so I'm Nills. I'm mostly a keyboard player and musician before like everything else, like promotion, marketing, and everything comes like really. It's of course we started to do that, but I'm a musician since I'm 6, and now I'm 31. And of course, at one time in your career, you discover like that you have to be invested in some of. Also of this part, but to me it was like I think at the beginning quite. Even, let's not say painful, but quite hard to get really interested and involved in that. Because it's also something that I've been studying jazz in school. It's something that you don't learn at school, like promotion, marketing. I come from France. In France, we study jazz. We study how to play 2-5-1, how to play fast bebops, how to play, I'm not good at that, but we don't study marketing. We don't study how to promote our projects, how to be on social medias, and I felt like this is something we had to learn by ourselves with the band. Especially.
So I actually think that Maria might have some interesting perspectives for artists on how to start your marketing journey as a musician who doesn't get taught any of this stuff in school.
Yes, absolutely. I think I have a thing or two to say about this, because not only am I a creative director and a media producer, so of course somebody that works on a professional level with labels, with bigger artists, but also I advise a lot of smaller artists in our region. So my company Substandart, which by the way doesn't have that many T's in it, this middle one you should exchange with a D if you ever Google me. So this is not correct spelling of it. Anyway, we also advise artists on the trajectories of their careers, and of course these artists in Austria, for the most part, are small to mid-sized artists, so people who usually may not have that much industry support. So of course, the strategies there vary quite a lot to what you would see with bigger labels or with bigger projects like this, where there's, of course, a lot of budget. You can outsource things to people. We do not have this luxury quite often with smaller artists.
But I mean, as an artist and you're starting out and you want to make the most of your, like, say maybe 200 euros for a show or a tour in a new city, like concretely, what should we really do?
DIY everything that you can and invest this in advertising instead of wasting it on anything else. Because usually, you know, especially right at the beginning, what I see artists doing is trying to play a rock star, you know, in a way, and make themselves feel good with marketing activities, which is not the goal of marketing activities after all. So for instance, right at the beginning, you know, investing in PR in this case, you know, being maybe, you know, investing in PR, which means usually being not mentioned somewhere in a local newspaper somewhere at the back of the page, you know, will not help you with this 200 euro.
As a publicist, I object to this statement.
Do you think that local newspapers actually work for artists that nobody heard of?
No, I think that it can help. I think that local media can really help to build local support, especially, honestly, let's face it, we work in jazz and we have a largely older demographic who still read newspapers, who still love newsletters and all this sort of stuff. I'm playing with you a little bit. I'm provoking you to get a concrete answer.
Yeah, because I wanted to say that
I think, like, honestly, I've said this before in, like, lectures, and I think that when you deal with PR the wrong way, yes, you're basically buying very expensive social media content, but I think that if I have 200 euros, you're not going to hire a publicist with that money anyway.
Absolutely.
So you said invested in advertising. Is that like Google ads, or is it Meta ads, or like is it Facebook, Instagram? Should I go to TikTok? Like, what should I do if I have 200 euros right now? My show is in 2 months.
Let's reframe it then. I would say that DIYing your PR for 200 euro most probably will not yield any result, while DIYing your digital advertising most probably will yield some sort of result already, especially in a market just like Bulgaria. 200 euro goes quite a long way, to be honest, with the quite cheap traffic that you guys have the access to in this country. Most probably this is going to help you maybe feel a small venue, even if it's old people. Old people love Facebook.
They do. No, they do, absolutely. Eva, I saw you like really interact to this conversation.
Yes.
Like, give it to us.
I've seen a reaction there.
I've seen a reaction. Like, put it into words, please. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. First, I'm gonna just share where I'm coming from. We started as a curator 13 years ago, so we are part of the people who reject PR people, sometimes, unfortunately. Eventually, we launched our own label, so I think I'll try to be very honest about the two different points of view because sometimes they clash. I'm gonna skip the budget for me. I think if you're an artist and you're just starting out, and if your budget is 200 euros, I would personally forget about it. First, you need to figure out the field you're entering, because a lot of artists are starting to release music without even thinking about what am I trying to achieve. That could be selling tickets and shows locally, but that also could be building online and streaming presence, because unfortunately, to break it to you, numbers do matter and people do open streaming platforms, and it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 streams or 5,000 streams. And the reality is that you can achieve a lot more for almost no money. And another thing I want to really stress on, because it's a conversation I have with artists a lot, don't rush to release all the music at once, because while we as a label have the luxury to release every week and try and test and A/B test what works and what doesn't, the artist has a specific creative juice which eventually is going to run out. And I really advise to plan singles releases and take all the learnings from every single release. Those learnings can also be just building connections, genuine connections in the industry. Unfortunately, the industry is very transactional because people always want something from you, and you have to accept that. But at the ground level, you are going to find people who want to help you, as long as you're genuine and nice. Just something fun. I'm going to share with you the last message I received from an artist who I rejected. I hope you choke on your Starbucks order. Don't be that kind of artist. But going,
oh my God,
yeah, it's true, it's true. But every release try and either utilize small, let's say, promotion services. I'm not gonna share names, but you can pay very little to send to curators, or just be super genuine, send a personal message, and probably people's gonna reply eventually. And say 1 or 2 messages, not 5 or 6. But I have to say, even though we've been doing this for 14 years, I still reply to artists and messages when I have the time. And I've built some genuine connections with those guys. And if you keep doing this, you're gonna build a database to start with, and that's gonna kick off your, let's say, streaming journey. And that's the basis for everything else after, in the reality we live in, at least.
Absolutely, no, I agree. I think that whether it's like marketing or distribution or press or gig bookings, like you have to start building your network from the ground up, which is, I can tell you, it's groveling on the other side of the fence as well. We have to work very hard to build our relationships and get shit done. I'm curious, actually, Nills, what is your experience with that? How have you started this journey? Because you're here now, you're playing this beautiful festival.
Yeah.
Things are going well, I would say.
Yeah, that makes me think of at the beginning what we discovered with this band that we have with Emile Londonien that mixes jazz and electronic music. We discovered something that I think I didn't know before, that there were a lot of DJs and curators who were absolutely invested in that music. And also, same thing than before, I was just studying music, so my reference was the teachers, the students and stuff. And they're like, this was like completely new to see that DJs had an amazing jazz culture, sometimes better than my own jazz teachers that were at the moment were like, okay, wow, he's like such a great pianist. But DJs and curators had this amazing culture, and I discovered like also people who I could exchange with, talk about music, like just saying it's not only about like, oh, it's professionals, it's promoters, it's a different kind of. I mean, for me, like talking about music has always been important, and I discovered that like DJs, especially DJs, like on the electronic scene, are like people with such an amazing culture about jazz, about 70s music, about so much thing that I really love, and I always believe that when you're like having a passionate discussion about like concrete things like music for us as musicians with professionals, this creates a special link. And so at first when we had this, just to answer the question, because it's not really answering the question what I said, but I think what we had this very local label from the small city, and when we released our first EP with 2 remixes of the tracks from DJs, it went to this kind of more club that more club scene than the jazz scene, and it was played by DJs and stuff, and these were like people that we were talking with and exchanging, and this was really important, like also as an artist, and they are also influencers like those DJs.
I think you're touching on like a very important thing here, actually, because what you're saying is that you're getting more important input and more valuable things from these new relationships because they're people who share the same interests, who like the same music. Maybe you come from the same place, maybe you don't, but you're more or less like headed in the same direction. This is, I think, also what Ivo means when he says, yeah, I'm sorry, but if I get rejected by saying, like, I hope you choke on your Starbucks coffee, like, obviously, when this guy comes back, no matter how good his music is going to be, you're never going to pick up the phone again. Because this is very much a people industry. And this is why, I mean, I joke about it. I'm like, I'm a publicist. I get rejected for a living. 60 pitches, I get 10 placements. So, Ivo, how is that for you? How have you built relationships with artists? How should an artist present themselves to you to be, like, interesting? How does that work? Do I send you an email and go, we've never met, but will you please, like, manage my act? Surely that's not how it works.
Sometimes it works. I'm just gonna take a step back just to give a practical example of what every artist should be. When you get rejected, so we got rejected a lot for the first 5, 6, 7 years, and it's normal. Make them not reject you. And a very simple tip I always give to artists: you an artist, you have your music, of course, you have your social media. You want to give a bit more to people about you. The very basic thing is curate your own artist playlist on Spotify or Apple Music. The reason there are 2 reasons for that. First of all is I go to your profile, I like your band. I want to know more about you. Oh, that's my favorite picks. Let's see what this artist gets inspired. What happens in reality is if you keep doing this, those playlists actually start to grow, and eventually other artists and maybe even labels will be like, oh, I see you have a playlist that curates doom-gore metal. I have this kind of style. Can you also support me? And in a way, you kind of also have a reason for something to give back, and you also have something to share with your audience. When it comes to building relationships, I think the most important thing is when you go to somebody, make sure they are the right person for you. So I'll give an example. There is a band from Indonesia, very small band, very distant country. They reached out to me and they said, I know that you featured HVOB, which is Austrian techno kind of band. We make similar music. I am very much inclined to check this out if I have time. If somebody comes and be like, I make, I don't know, like turbo folk music, can you support me? To me, that's an indicator that you don't know who you're sending to. So why should I take a minute of my day to reply to you if you haven't?
Yep. No, 100%. It's about reciprocity. Like, if you want someone to spend 5 minutes or more with your music, you have to spend those few minutes to figure out who you're. Yeah, absolutely.
And one last thing, sorry, just because we have this tooling topic in the discussion, there's a lot of fancy tools out there. The main thing you need is actually Google Spreadsheet. Just keep writing down who you send it to, what they do, what kind of genres they do, what is their contact, what is the email, and what is the last interaction you had with them. If you keep doing this after a while, I promise you're going to have a super decent database with at least 10 or 15, 20 people who's going to respond to you on release day after 15 releases. Because the reality is, again, you have to look at this in the long term, not after one EP, not after two EPs. We're talking about 3, 4, 5 years. That's the only way to build a longevity in the industry right now, unfortunately.
I do want to say that I love Excel sheets more than like most people here probably, but I can recommend HubSpot for musicians, which is a fantastic free database, and you can completely like file everything. Plus, if you have the app, it'll tell you when someone opens your emails, how many times, and whether they've actually clicked the links you sent them. It's awesome and it's free. Maria.
Yeah.
Yes, you
I have
look like
things
you've
to
got
say.
you have ideas.
I am thinking, I mean, I've been kind of listening to and digesting everything that I'm hearing. And what I'm actually hearing and taking away from this discussion so far is that a lot of these activities that you guys are talking about for DIY artists, like building a network, right? Being nice to people, you know? Building a playlist, being proactive about your presence on social media, etc. What is one thing that connects all of them? Team, does somebody notice a pattern here? All of these things are actually free. So maybe this is one thing to take away from this chat, that as a DIY artist, something that's very important is not only gathering the resources, but also preserving them. So if there are certain activities that can be done by yourself, then they should be done by yourself. And oftentimes maybe it's good to even reverse engineer it in the sense where we think as artists, you know, okay, what are the things that we could do to, you know, push this project further that will not cost us money, will only cost us the resource of time, which of course time is money, but with musicians oftentimes that is the only resource that maybe is available. So why not use that? And I think, you know, from my perspective as a marketer, something that oftentimes is being outsourced to me that I think doesn't need to be necessarily outsourced, and this is, I'm now ruining my own business telling you this, is brand development. Because that's something that a lot of artists do not put any thought into. This is something that is oftentimes then created by some marketing agencies or labels later on in the process when somebody already cares about them. A lot of projects fail because they never really put thought into it. But to be honest, is it really impossible to just sit down with your band for a moment and think about who your target audience is, and then what kind of people are we really trying to appeal to, and what are the things that we as a band stand for? What do we communicate? Not only what are the visuals. Okay, yeah, we have white t-shirts and pink, you know, bows. Okay, this is part of it. But then at the same time, it would be nice to know what kind of vibe is the music, what kind of themes are we talking about in the music, what kind of, not even genre, but what kind of values do we want to necessarily transport through our music, and how does that manifest in everything that we are doing, in our social media presence, in our PR appearances, right? All of these things you can think about yourself, write them down in the form of a nice brand portfolio, together with more working documents like the stuff that Ivo has mentioned. You're already steps ahead of a lot of your competition, to be honest, because these are the things that later on maybe somebody knowledgeable at a label, at a marketing agency would do for you, that you can actually, you're fully capable of DIYing yourself with help, with maybe using some help from YouTube.
I think that the problem with that is that everybody thinks they have a story, but the story is really important. Everybody has a story.
Yes.
You need to find the right way to tell it, but that packaging it into a product and treating it as such is something that a lot of musicians think is inauthentic. So, Nils, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah,
are we preaching to the choir, or?
I was thinking about that and what you said, and it's really interesting because we've already heard sentences like you are the artist, you do the artistic part, and we do the promotion part, and so, and we always disagreed with that. This is really something important. Not that we don't want people to do stuff for us. Of course, we are happy when we have a proposition, but for us, all the parts, all this promotion, all social media is also a reflection of our artistic vision.
Yes.
So it's important that even if we don't do it by ourselves, we used to do it all. Now we have also some RPs, but it's always very important that we keep concerned a lot about this, because we are probably the only ones who really know what we want to say. But of course we need other people, because I'm not competent in every I'm very bad at social media, for example. But the thing is, I don't like this sentence. We don't like to hear you're just doing the artistic part and we are doing the rest. We don't want to hear that. We want to be involved in each step, even if we're not doing it by ourselves.
If I may say something to this, you said a very strong keyword there, which explains it all. I don't know if I can preach like this, because I sometimes dominate this type of discussions, but I'm going to say it. You just said promotion, and that's exactly what it is. That oftentimes what you're getting is promotion, you're not getting marketing. And what do I mean by this is that marketing is an activity that consists of something called the marketing mix. And it's very easy to remember because it's just 4 P's. So it's price, place, promotion, and the product, right? So if an agency, if a label only focuses on promotion part of it, then we are not really doing marketing. We are just doing promotion. And that's why you're feeling this way about it. Because if the business partner that you're working with, because that's a business partner at the end of the day, doesn't take interest in what the product is, they don't really care to learn who the product is. What is the placement of it? What is the place, right? And then what the price of it is.
Where the people at?
Where the people at? Literally, exactly. That's what it is. If that's something that is being neglected, then you're getting just part of the service that you're supposed to be offered, And oftentimes, this is unfortunately the case and the reality of the industry, that you have to impose certain things on them. And then that's the question: how do you really communicate it properly? And as I said, something that can help quite a lot with this is having a proper brand portfolio, where you have all of this information about who you are at the core of yourselves as a band, that is in a presentable format that can be sent to business partners and imposed on them sometimes. So yeah, I fully hear you, and I get it.
Ivo, is that also the full package that you need, or what does this look like for you?
I agree with everything you said, but again, because we're talking about do-it-yourself promotion and we're talking about the start of the artistic way, because I heard many times, what is the story, what is the story? We talk to artists a lot, and we also have our own brand, and sometimes I'm very much aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but coming up with a story sometimes is very difficult. And I think people shouldn't forget that the music is the story. And I'll give you an example. Since we're sharing the age, I'm 38 years old, white guy who lives in Plovdiv. Remotely, nothing interesting about me, but I managed to grow a TikTok account to 40,000, and the only thing I share there is the music I like. There is nothing else about me, because the music is the story. And I think I see, at least, again, everything, this is from my experience, artists cannot start basically sharing their music a lot because they struggle to come up with a story. But you can start small, especially on platforms like TikTok. You can post as much as you want because essentially every time it goes to new people. And you can just share, hey,
Yes.
if you like Yusef Days and Kate Renata, I make this kind of music. And that's the story. It doesn't have to be more than that because somebody who scrolls or doom scrolls eventually is going to see one of those names and it's going to probably relate to your post. And the beauty of especially TikTok, at least for finding new users, is that it's kind of like a fishing net and you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm overposting. I personally have struggled with this, especially on our own Instagram. I take hours to be like, should I post this or not? And if TikTok is somehow changed, you can just post and it's much quicker to build a new audience from my personal experience and from the artists we have worked with. So yeah, I hope this helps because I think it's something that everybody can do.
I do think it really helps, but I think, Maria, you would agree, and I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are, because it really does depend on the music and on the audience that you're looking for and what the audience is looking for in the artists that they are choosing to support, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to
Continue,
know,
yeah, please.
Sorry, because you said about the type of music. For me, it doesn't really matter because there is so much niche paths going into those social media networks that eventually, of course, it doesn't always happen, but you're going to find your niche. And you can hear, like, we're talking yesterday about on the fest, there is a genre called medieval lo-fi. And it's weird, but it's there and has a lot of followers, and it's a niche on TikTok. So, yeah, you can make very obscure kind of music, but eventually, I think you're going to find your
Sorry,
path.
is that like that 1 month in the 90s where we were all like internationally into Gregorian chants? Is it kind of like that?
Kind of.
Oh, that was a crazy time to be alive. Anyway, Maria,
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like something that you've said with this authenticity part of it, I think that honestly, with coming up with a story, we shouldn't even be coming up with the story. We should just dig out what's already in there, because I don't think it makes sense to fabricate anything that's not already there. And for the most part, I think there is not a single person in this room that wouldn't have something interesting about themselves. It's just the matter of exploring that and maybe turning it up to 11. And the thing is that the lovely thing about being human is that there always is somebody else that will relate to your experience. There is almost no experiences that would be unique. And if they are truly unique, then they are extremely weird and also funny to post on social media, most probably. But most stories, most things that we talk about in art are relatable by default because they are your own experiences, some feelings that you have felt as a human. So as long as we put focus on that, we are already making stuff relatable to people. It's just the matter of communicating these things. And I think it's very good to really dig into these feelings, because I think it hits so much more when you hear a hook on social media, hook being the first sentence of a social media video, right? That's supposed to hook the audience, if you know what I mean, because we're fishing nets, that's all that jazz, as they say, pun intended. Anyway, if we have a hook that speaks to a very specific experience that maybe is not that unique. Example of this, a hook that is not that great would be, this is the song of the summer. Okay, yeah, all right. Sure, scroll.
because I say so.
Yeah, because I say so. Anyway, self-promotion. Then on the other hand, I wrote this song after being broken up with, and it feels like this drive back home from their place when it's hot outside, but you don't feel like doing any summer activities. And you're like, oh, okay, this is very specific, but this is a feeling that a lot of people will be feeling right now because it's summer, and people still break up with one another, right? People still are sad in summer, right? And this is something that makes this song of the summer into a song of the summer for people, because you explain the feeling behind it, you explain what's relatable about it, and it's more so about really doing this internal job and digging really deep in your heart, what is it that will connect with the audience? Because I can guarantee you, no matter who you are and no matter what type of music you make, may it be even, medieval lo-fi, there is somebody that might connect with it if you like it.
Does anybody make that here? Because I'd love to hear it.
Not yet, unfortunately. Bummer, yeah. You should.
I will definitely check out medieval lo-fi because sometimes
Same.
I feel like I'm doing kind of medieval lo-fi, but I had no idea that this exists. So okay,
It's
kind of
pretty big.
interesting. Okay, good.
Surprisingly.
Nils, I was actually going to ask you, like, we've been sort of raging on about identity and story and reaching within to tell yours and to be relatable and authentic and all these things. How does that work for you? Because you said that you're a band, you're a collective. How do you tell these stories together? Like, how does that work? Where does that come from for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because we're talking a lot about social media, and of course, like we can't neglect that this is a very important point today, and I'm definitely not disagree on that. But still, I feel like this is like very personal, but in our own background and history, we've been doing also a lot of different communication and stuff in a more local way of doing stuff. Like, for example, as I said, we have this collective. We have had this collective since the band Emile Londonien is only 3-4 years old, but this collective exists since 2015. And the fact that we started to spread with that band also comes from the fact that we've been organizing events since like 10 years, monthly in places in our hometown, Strasbourg, very small town in France. But it's also like this thing of being kind of invested in the local scene, doing a lot of stuff, thinking about projects. Like we've had so many projects that also didn't come to this place before. So we've tried a lot, like, and this is something I think I want to insist on, like, and probably this was also because we were together and a lot of people, like, at the time we were like 10, 15 in that collective, and just like doing stuff, not worrying about if it was like a good or a bad idea, but each month we were going on stage and with different musicians, different projects, different stuff, and I feel like yeah, this is something that we learned a lot about doing, and I would like kind of recommend, like, if you have this energy of doing stuff. And this is also how we built at first a local community, and then met people, and this was all at the time DIY. But then this is also how we got involved into different activities of the music scene, like organizing events that I'm very bad at personally, but I'm really happy that we did that together. And this is how you learn also a lot about different aspects of the work. I know, like, Mathieu, the drummer of the band, is also like managing a lot the project, and this is like really important, like that we kind of try to do a lot of the stuff that goes around the music, and each one of us in the band in its own way.
Yeah. I think it's great to like be self-starting and proactive and like growing your network and your career, but also your community. Ivo, actually, you're doing that too, right? Because you put on Stereofox events. I've been to one actually last time I was here. Is there a similarity between these two approaches for you, or is that a different thing? Does an artist get brownie points for saying, "Hey, I'm putting on my own events and I'm like, with different collectives, maybe different lineups"?
Good question. So first, just to specify, because as we work with a lot of artists, and 98% of the artists are not in Bulgaria, we're lucky to work with some super cool artists who are actually here in the audience as well. It does help in general, and it drives up some interest on social media. But to be super frank with you, for what we do, because we as a label focus a lot on just digital streaming, it's not always necessary. We do focus on building online community. And going back to what you can do for free, let's say you don't like video editing, you don't like talking in front of a camera. There's still email marketing and platforms like Substandart, which are completely free. And what I like about those platforms is that you get to keep the audience, because we have spent a lot of time building our Facebook page, which is now dead. We've spent a lot of time building our Instagram page, which is now also dying. We've moved to TikTok, which is great, but essentially, you put a lot of work and resources into platform and you don't control the audience. So building community, whether that's Discord or email, is super important nowadays. And it doesn't matter if it's just 20 people, because 20 people is, let's say, you can look at it as a conversion funnel. You release a song, you have a newsletter of 20 people, but they're your core audience. Half of them is gonna save your song on day one to Spotify. Those 10 saves are super important, because this is what drives algorithmic playlists nowadays on Spotify. That's radio and Discover Weekly, and that's very, very important. And as opposed to the convention, you don't need that much of those saves to be actually successful to drive those algorithmic playlists, but it is important to have them. I don't think I answered your question exactly, but
I mean, it
community is
wasn't
important.
necessarily a question. I was interested in your perspective on these events and on. I think also, Maria, I'd like to ask you, and then I think we have to move on to questions because we're like, we could be here all night. I feel like. So to bring it back to where we started concretely, let's do this full circle. Nills is already putting on all of these events. That's amazing. Ivo says, but streaming and numbers are important. So how can we bring those two things together via, as a fellow marketer and social media and PR person, I love the data behind this. So how can Nills increase like his data points through these events to achieve what Ivo is achieving with his label to be more like, to expand his audiences?
The answer is very similar to what I was saying at the beginning. It's not playing the rock star that you are not yet, you have not yet become, and it's about
stand at the door of the clipboard and ask for your email address.
Quite exactly, that's what I was about to say. Take your audience for a beer after your concert, because most probably this is basically a party of 20, 30, 40, 50 people, you know, it's okay. Some of them will very gladly probably hang out with you after the concert that you've organized, chat with you, build this personal connection with you, which is, I mean, very sweet. And that is also for many people, for many small artists, this is the USP that they have at the beginning. I am not Taylor Swift. You can actually chat with me. And that is a huge benefit for the early adopters of music, for fans of music. So offer them some additional value, and through that, gather this audience on Discord, gather this audience on a newsletter. This is going to, of course, bring you so much more value than, you know, playing a mysterious artist that just hangs out on the backstage. So I think that this is definitely one of many things that you can do, and still DIY everything that you can do.
Yeah, I think like maybe if there's like one word that gathers together, like because we have like different languages, I feel like we all don't speak the same, like we don't have the same background, of course, but there is like one word that comes very often is community. Like we have
absolutely. We're in the people business. It's all about relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So
100%.
this is probably what kind of links us all and in our own way of thinking about how to spread the music or spread the word or like 100%. Whatever. It's community.
Absolutely.
In social media, in concrete organizing events, in having a label and putting artists together, it's all about the community.
I think we need to move on to questions because I think like we forgot like 10 minutes left maybe. I don't know what time it is.
We even have 15 minutes.
What?
That's lovely.
Amazing. Okay, so are there any questions? Oh, here,
Perfect.
I'm gonna just, I'll do the walking, it's fine, I'm not like, oh, you've got amazing. You guys are so well put together, amazing.
Thank you so much. My name is Yavi. I have a question that probably addresses all of you. How realistic is it to believe in DIY economies of scale? Because all of you said pretty much bits and pieces of the bigger picture, which is do it yourself, build the block yourself. But is it realistic to believe that the human one day in 2025 or maybe in 2030 will overrule the machine? Meaning, you said take your audience for a beer. You said believe in the 10 saves on Spotify because that'll build your community. Sure, if a year later, you're still with 10 saves. 5 years later, you're still taking your community for a beer, but you play in a cafe for 13 people and that's it. What's the desperation factor? And how do you overcome that?
I think that I would hope that if you take these steps that we have been talking about, after a year or two, you will not be in the need of taking your audience for a beer anymore.
Is that guarantee?
It's not a guarantee, no, because at the same time, I don't know anybody's music here in the audience. It might suck, it might be that nobody wants to listen to it anyways, and like there is no hope, so there will be no guarantees to anything that I'm saying. But the thing is that I would say that if you go DIY, there are of course ways to go full on DIY throughout your entire career, but then at the beginning, of course, you're thinking like a small business owner who's just starting out and probably DIYing quite a lot of the things that they are doing, right? You're starting a cookie business, you're then baking cookies in your own kitchen at home, and you're buying this stuff from, a store, grocery store. Then, of course, you have to scale up at a certain point. You will need to start gathering certain funds to do bigger campaigns, to start working with people, hiring your business partners, right? You're not going to be DIYing everything forever because, of course, at a certain level, if you dream big, right, you will need support. It will not be possible for you at a certain level to just organize a concert by yourself because this is something you will not be allowed to do from a certain PAX, right, in a room. So, to be completely honest, I think that if after a year, taking these steps that we are talking about, or 1-2 years, let's put it this way, if you are still stuck with 10 people in a Discord group, then maybe it's an indicator that you should start rethinking the way that you're promoting your music, right?
And when you start rethinking, you're like, I either put money in the algorithm because it requires money, or like
I think I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think the whole thing that we have been proving over the last hour or so is that it doesn't necessarily require money. Pitching to Spotify via Spotify for Artists is free. You can pitch to DSPs for free. I mean, of course, we talked about, we didn't name names, but there are curated playlists that you do pay for to get considered. But in general, I mean, PR can be free. Social media can be free if you feed the algorithms the way that we've described today. So, I mean, I feel like you're saying that we're all just a cog in the machine, and I guess in a way you might be right, but I think that because we're so heavy on relationships in this industry, and it's so much about like who you know and how you build these relationships with different people over time. Because people shift jobs, right? I mean, I was a tour producer 10 years ago, and I've switched to PR, and I've been in marketing for 15 years. People sometimes switch hats, wear multiple hats just to pay bills or because we're all human when we like more than one thing. So, like, your network will naturally expand. More people will join. People will, even if you're selling cookies, people might tell their friends that they just ate the most delicious cookie of a lifetime, or they'll share music. This is what makes us human. Sharing is one of the things I think that makes us human. And I think that ultimately, if you do start with those 20 people that you have a beer with, I've actually done that with my artists, and it's really helped them get a lot of goodwill. And if you do get these 10 shares and you do a pre-save campaign, and those 10 pre-saves get a little pre-save perk for Spotify where they have the only chance to see this video where you thank them and do something silly and play them a song they'll never see again. It's about building those relationships and making people feel as special as you want to be as an artist, I think. And I think that inevitably over time grows organically. It doesn't have to cost money. It can help because you hire people like us to make sure that you have more time to create and more time to focus on your artistry. You don't necessarily hire me, honestly, because it's impossible to do PR as an artist. I probably have better relationships than you because if I don't get an email back, I'll just call somebody or take them to lunch. But at the same time, in theory, these are all things that you can get a head start on yourself. You hire us when you get to your point in a career where you want to focus on your artistry and your music and your touring, or maybe also your events, which I think is a really, really great idea to grow your community and grow support around you and meet new people. But I don't think, being like the whole starving artist and never getting anywhere, I don't think that in the digital age that is realistic anymore. I don't think it has to be.
As long as you treat it as a business, I think.
Yeah,
that's
but we have to have some level of
differentiator.
optimism about this as well. We do what we love at the end of the day. And sure, it's hard, man. I mean, I ate potato soup for like 3 winters in a row trying to grow my business. It's not like, it's hard. It is hard work, and it's ungrateful sometimes, and sometimes it sucks. But we do it for the love of it, right? And I think that's the most important thing, because again, that's what makes us human, and that's what brings us all into this room in the first place.
Exactly. I was going to say that also, like, about you have to enjoy each step of it, like having a beer or like talking about your music with the fans, or doing an Instagram post or everything. This has to be something you are involved in, and you have to find a way to enjoy doing that. Otherwise, it's just going to be a burden, and it's not going to work. I think it's really something you have to find some part of a joy. Maybe it's at first it's going to be hard and stuff, but it's about finding your own way of how to get something interesting out of that, like how to get something. Also, because you have to get something out of it, of course. Otherwise, you won't do it. Definitely.
Just one great question. Just one thing to add. If somebody ever tells you, if you follow this step, you're going to be successful, they have no idea about music industry. Because it's so unique.
You're being scammed.
It's so unique.
Basically.
And sometimes it's about luck. Sometimes it's about being in the right time and the right place. But your question about these steps, because the idea is basically to talk to small up-and-coming artists. As Maria said, these steps should give you enough leverage to go to the next stage.
Yeah.
We didn't talk too much about distribution, which is very interesting topics because it's multi-layered and labels and like what we do, and distributors are actually there to take you off the ground, but those steps should take you to a decent place. Yeah, and if it doesn't work, you pivot or you test something else. But I've seen a lot of artists who succeed in these steps and then go to, let's say, get a better distribution deal or go to, let's say, a bigger label. I don't talk about majors right now because that's a whole other topic. Yeah.
I think the thing about distribution, though, is that we could have a whole other panel
Absolutely.
purely about distribution and pitching to DSPs and getting your music ready and all the metadata and everything. And of course, it's like massively important, but we only had 45 minutes. So I do encourage you to like look into that because Ivo's right, or talk to him. He's right here.
If somebody wants to ask me something.
No, seriously, it's massively important, but it's such a complex topic, as you said. I remember when I was trying to write about it, I wanted to throw myself off a cliff because I kept interviewing people, and I'm like, that's a lot. I live on an entirely different planet. Are there any other questions from the audience this afternoon?
Yes, there are a bunch.
Yeah,
Whoa.
amazing. Two, even.
Hi,
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Rado. I have two questions, but I'll start with the most important for me. You spoke about loving the process, treating it as a business, finding your way into doing that. So I was thinking, do you have your piece of advice to a DIY musician, like DIY promotion, of how to keep your creative juices in check? So what will be creating music and what will be like how much you should put in music, how much you should put in, how can you manage that? Do you have your own view on this?
Maria, do you want to tell him about content calendars?
No, I mean,
No, very personal. Honestly, for me, time blocking is something that really works. Where I really time block things in my schedule for doing certain activities. But this is my brain, so I don't know if this is going to work for anybody else. However, you know, also as an artist, because I also create multimedia art of all sorts, I find that time blocking time for creativity also might sound a little bit twisted for many people, because I know that like when inspiration strikes is the best moment to work. But it's very good to train this skill of being able to create art and get into this mindset of creating art on schedule. Because as a professional artist, this is something that you will sooner or later have to do, right? If you succeed. And I think that everybody wants to succeed, right? In the sense that they would do it gladly full time. So I think this time blocking is a thing worth trying and seeing if this is something that helps you. I don't know, maybe somebody has a different little tip over here.
No, I agree. This is why I said, you know, this is why we have content calendars and schedules and all this sort of stuff. Because at the end of the day, you have to sort of, like, it's kind of like practice. You're a musician, I imagine, right? So I mean, you plan practice time as well, right?
Sure.
It's not like you just wake up in the morning and go, oh, maybe I'll play a little bit today. And it's the same thing with like all of these different skills. You just like allocate time for it. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah.
Treat it like you're going to the gym. Every Sunday at 4 p.m., I'm at the gym. So,
Right. Thank you. I mean,
Just to add something.
Of course.
Yeah.
Not a musician, full disclosure, but I think, personal example, this worked for me. A year and a half ago, I didn't want to do social media, completely honestly. I've tried for multiple years to make it happen in the 14 years history of Stereofox. What did work for me is I lowered the expectations. I did a plan of what kind of content I want to achieve and how to get there. And I start with the smallest bits possible. I'll give you an example. I start with just posting slideshows, pictures. That's it. Because I didn't feel comfortable, super honestly, to talk in front of a camera on the phone in the last year. I did this for a couple of months. I got used to posting slideshows or photos every day. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the next step. I'm gonna say something short in the beginning of the video, which is the hook, and everything else is a B-roll. After I got comfortable with this, I was like, I'm gonna make actually a long-term music review. So I've been writing about music for 14 years, but I was terrified to speak about the music on video. And now it's working. But because you have to lower expectations, and I think with this thing, a lot of people are like, I'm gonna be super good at social media.
Right.
And it's very difficult because when you drive a car, for example, you don't drive like very well in the beginning, right? So you gotta break a bit in bits and pieces. And once you achieve some level, go to the next one.
Yeah, it's about compartmentalizing, scheduling, and just like building that routine for yourself. You had 2 questions, you said, right?
The second one is much more fun. Since you obviously melomans and you like music, can you share, each one of you, can you share one project or a band or an artist that is flying under the radar right now and we should listen to?
Oh boy.
I mean, you do that. I mean, you should say.
I think as a publicist, if my artists are flying under the radar, I wouldn't be doing a very good job. So I don't really know how to answer that question.
I do not. Like, I have somebody that popped into my mind, but this is so niche that I think for majority of you this will be interesting. It will not be interesting, let's put it this way. But at the same time, very worth checking it out. Yesterday we had the World Music Expo after all. So I work in Austria for the most part, so I work with Austrian artists, and an artist that is the most Austrian of the Austrian artists that I'm working with is Anna Buchegger. Try typing it, yeah, I know. Anna Buchegger. This is how I would say it with my Polish accent, which probably helps. Anyway, a very interesting artist because he sings in the Austrian dialect and uses the local instruments that are a little bit forgotten already. Very interesting artist that flies under the radar, obviously just because of the very niche character of her music. However, very, very interesting artist, interesting art that I think is worth checking out. And worth exporting also, because oftentimes it's like the wings are being cut of these type of artists in the sense that, oh, this is never going to be exportable because people do not understand the language, they don't get the context. Still fantastic artist with brilliant visuals.
I really think that if you find there's an audience for everything. I really believe that, and it's a matter of finding it. I had the same conversation with Dutch hip hop artists who said, "Well, I'm never going to succeed outside of the Netherlands." I'm like, I do a ton of world music, and I speak 0 languages of most of the stuff. I have no idea what they're talking about, but the music is great, and I love it. Anyway, flying under the radar. I did a record last year for a blind organ and piano player called Matthew Whitaker from the United States. And he was the protege and adoptive grandson of Dr. Lonnie Smith, who has left us, as some of you may know, but he was a legend. And if you're into some vintage swing and like organ 70s soul jazz and stuff, really good Hammond action, then that's absolutely something that I would recommend, because that's groovy as hell. And especially as a man of color who is visually impaired, he has the same condition as Stevie Wonder actually, but he manages to play the shit out of that organ, and I just think that it's incredible to have so much talent. But in Europe we haven't really seen him yet, which really, we will in a few years, I'm sure, but not yet. So you heard it here first.
It's always a tough time to recommend only one artist if you have to choose. So I had one popping in my mind, and then just after a second one, and I'm like, oh, which one am I gonna choose between those two ones? So okay, it's
go up tonight at 8, right?
No, it's between choosing between your local scene that I want to promote really, really, really hard, and also the new jazz scene that is just sick at the moment. So I think I would one of the best albums that I've been listening to last year was Nala Sinefro, absolute great artist. So her live once. This is such a new way to experience jazz, and her instrument also, I would say, probably, you know that.
Yeah, 100%, she's
Listen
great.
to the 2 albums, Continuum, and the other ones. The first one is great too. Can't remember the name, but Nala Sinefro. Definitely check that.
I'll give you 2. The first one is the Indonesian band. They're called I Talk Too Much When I'm Drunk. They just have one song.
Nice. Easy to remember.
Yeah, and then the other one is this Thai drummer called Celine. She just released an album like a month ago. I think she could be the next Yusuf Days because of the waves she's making.
Oh my God, send her my way.
I will.
Sounds incredible. So are there any more questions? We're running out of
Thanks.
time. We got to keep it a little bit short, I think.
Last question.
Last question.
There we have it.
So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So what if there's an artist who wants to keep their personal life and their stage life separate? What steps should we take? Are there any bullet points that haven't been, pardon me,
I
that
don't.
haven't been mentioned?
I don't really see a problem here. I mean, there's plenty of artists. Like, I love Matt Berry. I don't know if anybody of you has watched the IT Crowd or Toast of London or anything, but he's signed to Acid Jazz in London and has been for many, many years. Nobody knows anything about him. They don't know if he's married or if he has kids or anything. They just know that guy from the IT Crowd makes, like, white guy folk music and sometimes does, like, cool acid jazz stuff. So, I don't think that's really an issue, to be honest. I don't know how you guys
to
see
give a
it.
maybe practical tip on this, from what I've seen working with some artists that bring this up as a concern before starting working with my with any sort of marketing professionals, I would say that the best thing to do is to double down on the music itself, as in looking for these things that people could connect to in the music itself. In the lyrics, in the vibe, in the style of it, you know, looking for these kind of connections within the music instead of the artist as a person. Because oftentimes we will leverage the artist as a person, and it is a benefit. I'm going to say it, for us as marketing people, it is a huge benefit if the artist is outgoing and wants to become the frontman of the project. Of course, of course. It's harder to work with people who do not want to, that want to keep these two things separate, but it is possible and understandable. So
Yeah,
if you
but I
want to go
mean-
down this path, then definitely double down on music.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, we can do all of that, and you never have to know, like, whether I'm straight or gay or married or I have 17 children
Of course.
or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Sure, some people don't even want, you know, the audience to know their name, you know. That is also a thing, and
Part of
I
the
think
act.
an interesting band to maybe study, slightly different genre, because I think they make pop mixed with funk a little bit. Very long name. The Distraction of the Cult of the Sun, I think, is
wow.
the title. Very interesting, because the guy doesn't even show his face in the content.
But isn't
it
that
works
sort of
great, though.
the same vibe with, like, Gorillaz or I mean, Death Clock wasn't a real thing,
Yes.
but still, like, it's totally, I think this
But
is...
all of them are in this older context of slightly different music industry. So now to look for this in the context of, you know, the maybe last
You're making me feel
5
old.
years.
Gorillaz are still hip, man. I mean,
They
come
are.
on.
They really are. But they did rise to fame in a slightly different age, I think, because social media has really radically changed in the past 5 years, I would say. So it's good to study artists who are in this like growth phase right now, or where they're up to 5 years ago, maybe.
I think
So-
if anybody's interested in using like modern technology to reinvent the concepts of, I mean, Bloodhound Gang, actually, similar idea. Lots
I
of
don't know
like
them.
cartoons. See, oh my God. I'm gonna breathe into a brown paper bag and go get a drink in a minute. Oh my God, Grandma wants to go home. Okay, so do you know that we used to have to pay for the internet by the minute through a phone line? Did you know that?
The dial-up.
Anyway, I digress. Eva, what were you saying?
Sorry, I know we're taking too long, so sorry about it. I'm just gonna add to this. I'm taking aside the faceless artists, which are now kind of, let's say, Sleep Token is a very popular rock band. But a great example for what you're explaining is a jazz house producer called Berlioz. He's out of South Africa.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Of him,
like,
yes.
Yeah, so
Great
you know
example.
how he looks like. But I mean, if you go on social media, you can see who he is. He's not hiding his identity, but his presence is mostly wrapped around this kind of visual identity, which is a bit cartoonish. But what he does very well is the balance between showcasing that's a real person, because what's happening right now, and it's a very, very hot topic, I'm sure you guys have seen it, this band called the Velvet Sundown. It's an AI band that is now
yes.
basically
Yeah,
in
yeah.
all the music industry conversations. My personal, what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a strong backlash against AI music, and being
Hell
able
yeah,
to
let's start
see
today.
who the artist is behind is very important, but you don't have to
I think
share
honestly,
too much about your personal life.
as like, I think honestly, I think when you're like so heavy on the brand, like Berlioz, like Mono Neon, for example, as well, because I wouldn't recognize him if he walks down the street in like a normal pair of pants and everything. Like, no idea, right? It doesn't have to be that. Like, you can be recognizable without like giving it all of that, right? Okay, I'm gonna ask you to like connect to this conversation, but I think we have to like
Okay.
we have to get
Cut it, yeah.
we have to wrap up.
Yeah,
Nils.
just to say very quickly, like also we are like, as we are a trio, it's quite different, but we spend a lot of time together, for example, and we try to like, we have a lot of images and stuff like that. When we are all together, we're spending so much time together, basically, that we have definitely enough that we don't have to show more of our private lives when we're not together. We have definitely enough time when we work together each week. We are on tour each weekend, basically. I mean, and even if we weren't, even before, we were working together all the time. So it's like we have enough content that we don't have to, I don't know, I'm going to be very cliche, but film ourselves in our bathroom or something. Definitely don't need that. We don't need that at all. We can just like, we have a lot of tour images, of studio images, footages, everything. That's already enough spending so much time together.
Yeah, there's plenty of space for like content without just, without involving too much of your personal life, I imagine. But anyway, I really think we have to wrap up. I'm having such a good time like hanging out with all of you and with all of you. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope that we gave you something useful today and that you've enjoyed joining us for this panel. Can you please put your hands together one more time for these wonderful, wonderful people? Thank you.